Hello, everyone. So, for those of you that haven't been joining me and these amazing X-Men friends that I have joining me on these last few lives, welcome. This one is titled Waking Up with Ease, but we've actually been I keep having these conversations prior to going live with everyone that are even greater than the titles that we're choosing. So, we might go a little bit there and other places. So, welcome everyone. I'm Cara Wright.
I'm Jocelyn.
And another one of my brilliant X-Men friends. And I think I actually met you like because of X-Men, didn't I?
Yes.
Maybe I met you before. Yeah.
At a 2-day class where you taught X-Men.
And we've always kept in touch, like since. It's just amazing when you know that there are other people out in the world that actually like have a similar way of being. Like we talked about yesterday, everyone is very different, but when you realize like you're not as fucked up as you think you are, it makes a big difference. So the one thing I wanted to I guess start with today was something that Jocelyn was talking about coming on this live. Like, first of all, she was saying how she was a little like nervous isn't the right word to come on here, whatever that energy is. But she said last night it was like up in her world quite a bit. And this morning it was up in her world quite a bit. And I was saying to her that I could perceive her. I was like, oh, but you cannot come on, in my world. And I just want to say to everyone, how much are you actually aware of people's thoughts, feelings, and emotions? And you're still not really acknowledging it. Like, we have these energetic conversations with each other all the time. If you think that the only time you're communicating with people is when they're in front of you or live, you're missing about 99.99999% of how much you're talking to people. And I say talking facetiously because like words are so lame. And when you like, one of the cool things about the X-Men body of work is you really start to realize that there's so much more going on that you're aware of than you ever considered possible. Because, here we're told words are the thing. Words are well, and exactly. So here we are. She showed up live. I'm very excited. So thank you.
I did it.
But then I also said, okay, this is another whole thing like that comes up. There's so many like things with the X-Men bodywork from my perspective that like they're just things that you have in your world every single day, but you most of the time don't realize why it's there or what to really do about it. We just kind of have these like things. And one of those is like she was saying when she was thinking about coming on today, which she was actually perceiving into her future, into the energy she was perceiving into everyone who is going to watch this live, who's on live right now, who's going to be watching it 10 months from now, 10 years from now. Like you actually have the ability to be aware of all of that first and foremost. And then most X-Men have the capacity that when they put their attention on something, that thing exponentializes. So between the two things, you can get a little freaked out. Like, and it's like, and this reality says, oh, you have, they call it like these really like, you have anxiety or you have performance anxiety or you have social anxiety. And it's like, that is the most minimalistic way of addressing what is actually occurring for an X-Men.
Yeah. And I actually love, I'm not a performer, but performing. Like I love being on here and I love chatting with you and like.
Yeah, it's just the lead up.
Exactly. It's the lead up. It was a little intense, but I'm here. I made it.
Well, and it's so brilliant too, because it's like, you have taught yourself to show up anyway. My computer keeps doing this weird thing. You've taught yourself to show up anyway. And that's what it like. Most of us have like had these brilliant, amazing capacities that no one tells us we have to perceive far into the future to perceive, the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of everyone, in a 1,000-mile radius, just things like that. No one tells you have that, but yet that's what you experience every day. And so for a lot of us, like by the time I found the Xmen body of work, I had like OCD. I had all these like really weird, rickety ways of dealing with stuff, or, like white knuckling through it. I mean, we have so many, most Xmen have like a litany of coping mechanisms.
Just a couple.
Just a few. And I love it. I love this conversation, Jocelyn, because waking up with ease, like, that's the whole thing. Like, there is no like, this stuff goes away. It's not like you go to bed at night and like all that awareness stops and you get an 8-hour break. That's not how.
We don't get a break at night. Is that what I've been doing wrong? Thinking that I get a break at night.
I was gonna say, in fact, a lot of us don't like, and that's the thing too, is like if you think you're getting a break, that is even more odd, because then you start like, then what you are aware of gets really twisted up into like, maybe you think it's you, maybe you think you're the one that's having, this panic, this freak out, this. So then we misidentify and misapply all these energies, right? So I think one of the first things waking up with ease, like you can start to play with, is like, what if you are so much more aware of your environment? And I mean, I'm talking everything in your environment than you've ever considered. And my computer's doing something weird again. Do I keep going black when that happens? No? That is so weird. My computer keeps like going to sleep. Anyway.
Technology.
So way more aware than you've ever considered.
Yeah.
And would you be willing to start acknowledging it? And that awareness that you have, even though you think you can control it, you're actually not controlling it. It's like a tsunami that's around you all the time. It's, if you were in the middle of the ocean, could you not get wet? Which most Xmen, that is the experience you're having with your awareness, and you have convinced yourself that you're not getting wet. Oh my God, that's like a hilarious analogy I've never used before. So
it's brilliant. I love it. Can I just mention one thing?
Yeah.
When I first met you and I first took my very first 2-day Xmen class,
yeah.
I legit, first of all, I was like, I'm not an Xmen. I just think this stuff is interesting, and it's in Los Angeles where I lived at the time. And I was like, why not? I'll get some information and maybe it'll help me contribute to other people. Like, I don't think I'm an Xmen. I don't really get this. And like, if anyone out there has that thought, I mean, I'll let Cara say it, but
you may be an Xmen. I think we all have had that experience. Like I didn't realize, and I tell this story all the time, like I hadn't put together, like, because from my perspective, when I started taking access classes, the Xmen body work would come up every now and again. And I had this whole point of view that Xmen were these like specialized forces, like these were special people. I had like of course, I had the opposite point of view. Like a lot of people are like, I don't want to be an Xmen because they're weird. I was more like, oh my God, those are like the coolest people alive. Like I couldn't possibly be that cool, And it took like this run of classes that I ended up, going to and asking Gary Douglas questions. And every single time I asked him a question, he said, well, what part of you're autistic don't you get? And I'm like, what the fuck does he keep telling me I'm autistic for? I'm not autistic, because I've never been diagnosed as autistic. I was like, no, that's not me. Fast forward to today, and I'm like, duh, of course. Like that makes my whole life make so much more sense, which I think is one of the gifts of the Xmen body work, and actually being willing to, I talked about the acknowledging of your awareness as one way to have ease. But also acknowledging you, like the being, like you, the person, um, that you are that different and miraculous and wonderful, and that your difference is what makes you, you know, the gift that you actually are. So, anyway, that's I'm so glad you came. And however you find the X-Men body of work is great. Like if you stumble in here going, this might help a friend, great. But I'll tell you right now, if you've been listening to us for 10 minutes, you may be an X-Men because it's just not going to be relevant to you if it's not. And if you're still interested and curious, it may be relevant to you. So yeah. So another I will say one of the basic tools of X-Men is something that's like a little bit further into like being willing to acknowledge like what you're aware of. And that would be like asking the question at all times, what am I perceiving? Like what am I actually perceiving? Because so much of what X-Men have decided is theirs and even their bodies is simply something they're perceiving. They just haven't acknowledged that it's a perception. It's not a real reality to them. And when I first took my first, and I don't know if this is true for you, Jocelyn, but when I first took my 2-day class, I was shocked at how much stuff was in the manual and how much we address things going on in bodies. I was like stunned. And there was a lot of stuff that I had either personally experienced or, like had this like curiosity about it in my life or the people around me too. And it just was like, oh my gosh, like that whole thing is, I'm dark again. That is so weird that keeps happening. Like the fact that X-Men have amazing talents, abilities, capacities as being, as who we are, but our bodies also do. And again, no one tells you that your body is capable of giving you information. And if you're being slightly thick, you could misidentify and misapply it as actually something going on in your body. And then, being the X-Men that you are, like I said, when you put your attention on something, it exponentializes and then whammo, you've actually got something physically going on. And really, it might have just been your body going, hey, did you know this was going on in your environment? So also, our bodies are amazing. And, so I would also say too, like when you wake up in the morning, like especially, if you're someone who wakes up and you immediately don't feel your best or your body starts to do things, like starting to be in the question of like, okay, cool. What is this? Like, what am I actually perceiving? Body, what are you telling me? Like, just, not to even get the cognitive answer of that, but to just be in the question of like, and the acknowledgement that it's not necessarily you or your body that is, this thing is happening. You're getting the information from your environment.
And it sounds so simple what you just said, but as an X-Men, especially if you like, not just ask the question, but like be present with it and open up, it opens up doors. You don't need the like cognitive response.
Mm-hmm.
Just giving yourself like even 15 seconds to be like, oh, like, what am I perceiving?
Mm-hmm.
Just gives you a bit more space for you to be like, you can breathe and like, oh, okay.
Acknowledge that you are perceiving. And the questions that we ask, especially the X-Men questions, you're not actually asking to get an answer. You're not actually asking to get even anything cognitive, like words back. You're actually asking as an acknowledgement that there's something going on more than you've considered. And those are the ways in which when you start to use the X-Men tools daily, things start to show up. Like capacities that you have, talents you have, abilities that you have. Like there's so many X-Men out there, and this is where the disability and the ability thing shows up. So we talk a lot about it in X-Men that what disabilities, what abilities do you have that have been labeled as a disability? It's like if you're someone who has like major sensory capacities, like for hearing or for smell or for touch or for taste, this reality wants to make those things bad, wrong, awful. Like you got to figure out how to not be that way. You got to, recover from that kind of sensory intensity. Well, what if that's actually a capacity? And what if just the simple act of going, what am I actually perceiving? Body, what are you telling me? And acknowledging that that's actually what's going on. And you're not just some weird person who is super sensitive to sound. It changes how you can actually be, like you said, present with it. You don't have to go into reaction. You don't have to go into like, oh my God, this is bad. I need to stop doing this. You can actually be like, wow, I'm not comfortable right now. This is really loud, but I don't have to freak out about it. I can actually be more like, oh, wow. So this is just how I perceive my environment.
I am still working on this.
Aren't we all? I mean, X-Men isn't about like, there is no like conclusion. Like you don't become like a well-rounded X-Men. You just get weirder. No, you just get weirder. You just get more own allowance and okay with your weird. And you start to be able to use it to your advantage. Yeah. So many of the things that are labeled as a disability, it's because people take the way the person functions in society and goes, well, they can't be like everybody else, or they can't follow the rules, or they can't do this other thing. And because they're comparing it to this standard, you have to be wrong. But if you just got rid of the standard and was able to allow that person to be like, okay, what could you choose to do as a job or choose to be as a person that would allow you to take advantage of that capacity? And that's really the thing. It's like, you're not disabled. This reality is. And so, 100%. The X-Men tools like that, it's like, to me, they're a toolkit, a daily toolkit to remind myself and to consistently bring myself back to like, wait a second, I'm not disabled. What's going on? Like, what's going on around me? Like, how could I use this to my advantage? What am I perceiving?
Yeah.
For me, body.
Yeah.
What are you telling me, body?
And I want to add in like another question that's super helpful is, what's right about me that I'm not getting?
Oh my gosh.
There's so many times, if anything is intense or loud or not normal, or I often am like, what's wrong? What's wrong with me? I know nobody else does that. So I'll just be the one to use this question. You can't use it. It's only mine. What's right about me?
Also expand it. Like, that is actually one of my favorite questions. So thank you for bringing it up. But you can also expand it out too, like when it's an actual event too, like what's right about this I'm not getting. So you could be like, what's right about me? And what's right about this I'm not getting. And again, that's brings you out of the wrongness, brings you out of the conclusion that you're the fucked up one in the equation. And go into more of a, even if you like, you just break even and you can just not judge yourself for something you said, did, were, whatever, that's a huge difference in the way that you can create your life and create your future. It's so good. So that went by really fast, right?
It sure did.
Look at you. Anything else you want to say before we go today?
No, I'm so grateful for you, your facilitation, for the X-Men body of work. And I'm just, yeah.
Me too. And for those of you that have been joining these lives and enjoying them, the next one is going to be next Tuesday. So we're going to take a little break. Everybody enjoy their weekend. Thank you, Jocelyn, for coming on with me. And we will see you all soon.
Bye, everybody.